All right, we are on YouTube. I'm going to make sure I'm recording on my end. Record on this computer. This is Male Entrepreneur Podcast, episode number 153. And we are live in 3, 2. All right, welcome back to the Male Entrepreneur Podcast, the podcast for men who win, with your host, Purdeep Sangha, and a very special guest today. And so I'm just going to let you jump into it. Purdeep, what do we got lined up for the listeners today, man?
Hey, yeah, man. How's it going? I know that last time we chatted, you were having challenges with your back.
Yeah, I'm still in a lot of pain because I'm an old man.
Yeah, we'll save that for the next episode as well. I'm going to check up on you. But we got an awesome guest here today. I'm super excited. I've done some work with this gentleman as well, so that's why I'm excited. I always like to bring on quality guests because we want to give the best quality information and value to our audience. So, Hasani, I'm just going to bring you in, man. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, man, pleasure to be here. Definitely.
So for, a lot of our audience may or may not know about you. They probably don't. So why don't you just give us some background? I know you're a West Coaster.
Yeah. I'm originally from Oakland, California, but I've lived in 10 different places over the last 20 years. My wife's in the military, so we move quite often. But we're back in Cali, and there's some pros to that, some cons, but we're still living the life. But just about me, my name is Hasani X, but everybody calls me X. And that's, if you go online, you look me up, Hasani X, and the conversations are about X and story. My thing is the story that we need to tell ourselves in the world so that people believe, buy in, engage, and we're able to push our projects to fruition to create more impact and more income. I believe fundamentally everything we do in life, every endeavor in human life is driven by story. The one that we believe, the one that we take action on, and the one that we can get others to connect with. That's the key. That's what I do. I help people to find that story and to communicate that story.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually wanted you to explain it. I didn't want to actually explain it because you say it in a way better way. So I'm going to let the expert share his story. But just from experience, Hasani's actually, you've done some work for me, right? We've worked together, and I can tell you, you're absolutely brilliant at what you do. Like you're able to bring that. And I'm not just saying that. Like I give praise where it's deserved, and you definitely deserve that. Is you're exceptionally talented in that area. And I've worked with a lot of people in the marketing space, not so great people that have charged me a whole arm and a leg, but you know what? You are one of the exceptional ones, like Nathan from a copywriting perspective, that actually do your job and do it awesome. And I have to say that, you brought a number of things to attention for me. For example, this whole concept of the complete man is a big element. Like you had a big part to play in that, right? You brought this branding together for me. So I have to appreciate that and thank you for that from that perspective. Mm-hmm. But let's get into this for guys out there, right? Let's talk about the importance of story, because we all have a story. And we all have an empowering story or disempowering story. What do you see when you work with, whether it's men or the companies that you work with or consult with? What are you seeing out there, whether it's a common challenges or the importance of story where people need to go work on? But I'm just going to open it up to you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I believe, and this is part of the work that we've done together, is that when we can find a way to connect to the internal story that governs our life and connects to our value, we already have put ourselves in a position of being quote unquote complete. When we were going through our work and we were talking about the concepts and the ideas and all the things you've been working on and successes, and it was just like, how do we find a way to condense that down to something that is packageable, easy to communicate and hits? And it was like the complete man. All right. Like, but the thing about that is it isn't marketing hype. Purdeep, you live that way. You are that, right? And that's the power of story. When you can find the story that aligns you, if it's a personal brand, or your business, if it's a bigger company or whatever the case may be, you find the essence of what you stand for and what your value proposition is. Now you're more easily positioned to communicate it because it's not a front. It's totally aligned. It's completely congruent, and it's you. And I think that's the biggest bottleneck. we're trying so hard to communicate to the market an idea, a falsehood, something that's not fully transparent and authentic, and having to put on all that pressure and weight of trying to figure out what to say to be accepted is almost the opposite of what you need to do. Because today's market is too savvy to go for that BS. They want to see you. They want to connect to who you are authentically, transparently, and you need a way to package it and communicate it succinctly. So all the things, and I don't even want to say that this fully summarizes who you are, Purdeep, as a man, a father, a businessman, a coach, a consultant, the complete man. And we're just giving people an idea, something that they say, what is that? Wow. 2, you have a story to tell that backs that up. 3, you have client stories that back that up. And 3rd, your mission in life is to help men to become complete. It's the complete alignment from past, present, and future. Now you have a story that you can run 100 miles with.
See, I'm gonna throw it over to Nathan here for a question, but I can tell you, man, I already said this from the beginning. Nathan, you got to, Hasani has such a way with words. It's almost like poetry, right? And I told him when we were talking about Clubhouse on the last app, I'm like, this guy's got to get on there because it's all about words and stories and sharing your voice. And this guy has it. But I'm gonna throw it over to you, Nathan, because I know you've been itching to say something.
Yeah, so I'm a copywriter, and one of the things that I've noticed is sales messages and marketing. When you hit people with that, immediately their red flags go up, their walls go up, their defenses go up. But when you hit people with stories, a lot of my best sales pieces are story based, because when you hit people with a story, there's some kind of like primal nature to human beings that we can't ignore a story. It brings down all of our defenses. It puts us in a mode where we want to listen to the other person. So I guess I wanted to get your opinion. This seems to be something that you're very passionate about. For people that are working on developing their story or coming up with a story that connects with other people, or for me, a lot of times is this a story that as my reader is reading through this, they can say, yeah, that's me. This is me. This is the stuff that I'm dealing with. This person gets me. For your clients, for your work, what are some of the obstacles and what are some of the ways that you overcome those obstacles in helping people create those stories? Because a lot of people say, well, I'm boring. My life, I don't have an awesome story to tell.
No, 100%. Hey, let me go back to the power of story without getting all nerded out on this. You're absolutely correct. Story has a way to bypass defenses. And it's because we are naturally built to want to hear stories. And you got to think about it this way. From the beginning, before we could verbally communicate anything, there were all these dangers out in the world, all these spooky things that could take our life and put us in a position where we, quite frankly, have a lot to lose. So when someone comes up to us and says, however they say it, whether it's through grunting or a story or noises, there's problems over there. Don't go that way. And by the way, I did go that way. And this is what I figured out. And when I figured it out, this is what I was able to get from it. In other words, stories give us the path and blueprint to avoid danger and to succeed. And the brain is hardwired to want to engage with that. That's why we love our television shows. That's why we love reading stories. That's why when we talk to our friends, we're sharing these stories. This is what I went through. This is the shit I had to deal with. This is how I got over it. The brain goes, I just got a blueprint to avoid danger. So and there's all type of studies on this, and it's fascinating stuff on the neurochemicals that are released when we hear a great story, et cetera, et cetera. But getting back to the practical side of it, there are 3 stories. If I leave you with anything today, there are 3 stories I want you to work on as an entrepreneur. Your founder story, your client story or customer story, and your mission story. Now, at the top of the pyramid is the customer story, the client story. At the end of the day, all people care about are themselves. This has nothing to do with morality or anything else. We come first. So you have to find a way to tell a story that positions your customer as the hero. By engaging with you, I'm able to overcome these problems and the issues that I have, and I'm able to transform my life. And get this, if you can't tell that story, no one will listen. That's the first story. But the second one is the founder story, as in why you are a worthy leader in their journey, in their transformation. Like what does Purdeep bring to the table? How can you tell me how to be the complete man if you yourself haven't been through that process of being the complete man? So your founder story. And the last one, this is very important in this day and age when we have a more emotionally centered, connected society, is your mission story. What do you stand for? What are you fighting for in the world? What are you hoping to accomplish? What is the rallying cry of your tribe? So those three stories unite past, present, future. And when you can connect those three stories, you can run your mouth forever and tell great stories that people will not only engage with, but they'll buy in, believe, and follow and engage.
Wow, that's pretty phenomenal. And I can speak to that because it's having a massive impact on the work that we're doing. The book, for example, is a prime example of that. What kind of results are you seeing, whether it's from a personal side or a business side, when people get those three elements of their story aligned?
Yeah. One of the most, and this I think is one of the most undervalued parts of it. Once you get those stories, the kind of the packaging of that trifecta of founder, client, or customer and mission story, I think you're able to move a lot faster in the market. So many of my clients come to me because they want this pristine, highly packaged, polished thing. Like we do some production on the story side, some content development, things of that nature. But today's market isn't so much about that. Go back 10 years ago. High production value was truly important. It was new. It was something that people were excited about, but everyone killed that. You know, the old saying, marketers ruin everything. Well, we ruined that. But the thing that will never go out of style is the capacity to communicate authentically and transparently. So once you have your stories intact, I think it gives you license to run 100 miles an hour, to just pop the phone in front of your face and go, to just write your story out and share it, to just tweet, to just create images, because the basic guardrails of what your story is all about. Let's go back to you, Purdeep. Does this represent something that the complete man would think, feel, or do? Good. It's check the box. Let's share it. That is empowering of unto itself, because the entrepreneur now can run at the pace that the market is running at, which is 100 miles an hour.
As you were talking, I just had this massive aha moment that I was talking about, because our last episode was on Clubhouse, and in Hasani, you and I, we've been talking about Clubhouse and how to drive value to our audience and how to do it in you can say an effective way, because we don't want to be sitting on there all the time. But when you were saying that, I was just like, yeah, Clubhouse is just another avenue to share your story. That's essentially what it is. It's an avenue for you to share your story and for people to listen and to connect with other people who have similar stories. I was just thinking, I'm like, that is the power of social media, because a lot of us take social media from the wrong angle. And the story angle is just so powerful. And, it's just a big aha moment. It was like a light went on for me in my head. And I'm like, that's how these guys are able to leverage social media to such a degree. You and I talked about Gary Vee, right? And how effective he is. And he changes his story based on the platform, or he modifies his story. And TikTok has their own way of sharing stories. And this whole concept of stories, like the social media, Instagram stories, right? LinkedIn has stories. It's all about stories.
Yeah.
Which is really huge.
Yeah, I would say too, I think a misnomer in this, when we think about the idea of story, we're thinking of once upon a time there was this, and then this, and then this. That's not necessarily what a story is. A story is just a narrative. It's a narrative. It's an arc. It's a process of transformation. If you get that into your head when you go into a clubhouse, all people care about is, can you help them solve a problem? Can you transform this problem into a solution where they can have a pleasurable outcome? That is a story. Mm-hmm. So no matter how you say it, whether you're a fanatic and you're all over the place and you drop F-bombs, or you're very pedantic and slow and you think things through, as long as you understand there's a problem, a challenge, an issue that people want to engage in, and if you can give them something that helps them to feel like they can solve their problem, or that you can help them solve their problem, you've told a story that's connected. right? Messaging on the surface is just about reducing the friction between our value and what it is that the other person wants. But branding and story is about emotionally connecting. Do I believe in Purdeep? Do I believe in Nathan because of what he is saying makes me feel? And the key word here is feel. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs miss this boat. Facts, features, and functions are important. That's left brain stuff. But the thing that people will move on is how you make them feel. Do I feel like I'm going to be able to overcome with or through you? And there is no one style to do that, but the common theme is narrative and arc, problem to pleasurable solution.
Can I be so bold as to ask what your story is? How did you get, because you got this stuff nailed down. I've been working on this kind of stuff for like 10, 15 years, and you've even blown my mind with some of the stuff, the insights that you brought today. How did you get into all of this?
Okay, let's see if I can condense it down. At the end, I'm from Oakland, California. So I don't know if anybody knows about that, but that's your typical urban inner city area, drugs, gangs, violence, the height of the crack era. Really tough place. And the only saving grace for me was I listened to a different story. I don't know where it came from. I can't claim anything other than I believe, and I think Purdeep and I had this conversation before, is the difference between a soldier and a leader is that a soldier is fearless. They run the script. Give a soldier a story and they'll run with it. Like, got it, boss. That's what I need to do. Go. I wasn't that. A leader has a certain degree of fear. Like, if I run this script, it's going to end bad. So we try to shift and change and maneuver and walk a little bit differently. And that's what I did. And that allowed me to kind of escape the ghetto and get out of there, be first generation college graduate, go to an Ivy League school, start my business straight out of college. Everything is like going swimmingly. I'm middle class. I'm crushing it, right? I go outside, I walk off into my neighborhood and I do one of these moves. And everybody who's listening on the podcast, I look left, I look right, walking out of my house before I get in my car. And you ever had that time where you have an epiphany, like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing that? And I was like, oh my God, it's because I am fearful. I'm still acting like I was in Oakland, California. And about 2 months before that, I got the news my brother was murdered in Oakland, California. He lived that life. And I hearken back to our last conversation when he told me I wasn't the brother he needed, right? And at the time, I told him BS. We grew up in the same place, had the same opportunities. It's on you. But when he died and I was at his funeral, I recognized my full fear of leading. Like, I didn't want to take on the responsibility of leading anyone. I would do what it takes to make myself, or do what it takes to put myself forward. But I was scared as hell to lead anyone. And I had those thoughts like, who am I to lead? Who am I to tell someone what to do? Who am I to listen to? And at his eulogy, I promised that anytime I experienced fear, I would tackle it. So I sat there that day in my car, recognizing I was scared of physical confrontation like I was living in Oakland. I made a decision. I'm going to go tackle it. So next week, I found myself in a mixed martial arts studio. A year later, I was a professional mixed martial arts fighter, and I was fighting in a cage. And that transformation of tackling that fear, and there are stories with that, crazy. It was my journey from building businesses in the branding and marketing space and business development space to learning how to build people. Right? I was going through my own struggles of conquering my fears. And a lot of my clients started asking, how are you doing this? And why are you doing that? And I found that a lot of my work was in helping them to deal with that inner story stuff. So then I started a leadership company and a coaching company, and I started to work with leaders and teams and prisoners and everybody on the breakthrough sciences of connecting with that inner story to strengthen who you are and what you believe. And I've been on that path ever since. And the latest transformation for me is the last about 2 years ago, is to recognizing that, wait a minute, all of the stuff I did with business development was around story. All the stuff I've been doing with coaching and leadership is around story. And I was like, why am I choosing? Let's do both. And that was the birth of Lead Your Story, where we help companies and businesses to align within that eternal story and to galvanize around it for leadership and culture. And we help them to tell that story to the market. So that's Lead Your Story. And that's how I've gotten to where I am today.
Nice. Purdeep, did you have any more questions before we go?
No, I'm still in silence based on that story, man, because it's very powerful. And I think you just shared, Hasani, how powerful stories can be. Because I know I was looking over at Nathan, seeing his reaction, and it's just, like you said, it's authentic. It's not anything that you made up. It's who you are. It's a life you lived. It's what you grew out of it. I think the comment that I have to say when you were talking about a soldier versus a leader, something that I picked up on, you talked about being able to look at all aspects and the impacts. And that's what we talk about when it comes to being the mindful alpha male, right? The mindfulness aspect. And I have to give you credit for that, because that is being mindful. That's what leaders do, is being mindful of their actions and the ripple effect. But man, you just shared in today's episode the power of story. I think the impact on story. And again, I'm just going to add my 2 cents is, in working with men and working with high performing men and very powerful men, for example, that story within them is one that needs to be changed first. And once that can, but you take it to the next level, which is sharing that story, which is important.
Yes.
Because having that story within us is great. It's even more powerful when you can share it. That's when life really changes. That's when business really changes.
Yeah. And it's a self-reinforcing activity. The more people you share it with and the more people you bring into your story, the more accountable you are to being the embodiment of it. And it's a self-reinforcing, strengthening thing inside out. And that's why it's so important to communicate your story. So many are like, I don't need to share it. I don't need to share it. I don't need to share it. Well, you wonder why people don't believe, buy in, and engage. They'll deal with you at a value level, right? It's a commodity. It's an exchange of value. But when people connect because they believe in the story, you have brand. You have something that will stand the test of time. And one last thing here real quickly. I took a year off from social media. I haven't posted in a year. This guy who's all about communicating story hasn't been communicating anything. But I'll leave you with this. My business grew in the last year because of the brand work and the connection I've had to the people who were following me. I just needed that time to recalibrate. But we grew during the pandemic. Like it was a banner year. So that's the difference between sharing your story as opposed to just being a commodity in the market.
That is awesome, man.
Yeah, man, this has been a fantastic episode. Purdeep, thank you for putting this together. Hasani, thank you for coming on, man. If people want to check out more of your work, where's the best place to find you?
Well, first off, join my text community. We do all of these kind of insider trainings and things of that nature. All you got to do is text me at 800-425-2095. That's 425-2095. And then put in X Factor, and we'll make sure we put you on that list. If you want to go online and check out and find all my profiles and stuff, go to HasaniX.com, HASANIX.com.
Awesome, man. And Purdeep, if people enjoyed the podcast and they want to get more, where's the best place to go?
Our stuff doesn't sound as cool as Hasani X, but you can go to malepodcast.com or YouTubeformen.com.
Awesome. And until next time, gentlemen, we will catch you later.